Hi there, my name is FixFox and welcome back to Heroes of Might and Magic 2. Today is going to be something of the advanced guide for the Barbarian faction that you will find in Heroes of Might and Magic 2. Originally I had this vision of 45 minutes of long dialogue, but instead of wasting your time, I'm instead going to condense this down to 20 tips and tricks that you are going to want to know. Let me not waste your time any further. Let's dive right in. Tip number 1, pick the Barbarians on small to medium-sized maps where there's low resources. The Barbarians are very cost efficient, and up until Cyclops, they only rely on gold, ore, and wood to purchase. On small maps, that means that you can seek out your enemies much sooner, and you can potentially end the game before it even gets started. If the map has low resources, that means that your enemies are going to struggle to upgrade their dwellings while you're going to be throwing ogres and trolls at them until they submit. Tip number 2, look out for ore. You're going to need about 85 ore and 75 wood to fully upgrade your castle and get a second level mage guild. And with dwellings like the bridge and the pyramid taking 20 ore each, it's going to be your biggest bottleneck in securing an early game advantage in quality troops. Tip number 3, look for hill forts. This is an adventure map object, and it will upgrade your orcs and your ogres for free. This will cause you to hit a power spike much earlier than you otherwise would have, and you're going to save a lot of money and resources. Really, this is a faction-defining adventure map location because it will make a Barbarian faction the de facto best early game powerhouse because it will provide increased damage, speed, and hit points to some of your core creatures. Tip number 4, an early game mage guild can be important for you for this reason. The Barbarians do not start off with a spell book in their heroes, and therefore you're not going to be able to take advantage of the level 1 and level 2 shrines that you will find on the adventure map. It's a really small investment, all things considered, and it might prevent you from getting blind locked in the future, or might provide you with that haste or that slow that's going to be battle defining later on. Tip number 5, when you get offered wisdom, you take it. I don't care what the situation is. You can absolutely find a time where, oh, FixFox, I'm about to capture this castle and I really need the ballistics and I'm not going to need the wisdom until later. Yeah, maybe that's a time where you could take the ballistics over the wisdom or some other secondary skill, but I'm not here to teach you the exceptions. I'm here to teach you the rule. And the rule is this: you take wisdom as the Barbarians every single time that it's offered. And this is because the Barbarians' biggest weakness is that they don't have easy access to level 3, 4, and 5 spells. If you can cover up that one weakness by picking up the wisdom as a secondary skill, then the whole rest of your game is going to go so much better. And if you never pick it up, you're always going to be regretting that one time that you did not take wisdom. You want my advice? Take the wisdom. Tip number 6, look to prioritize knowledge and spell power when you're on the adventure map. And I mean, go to witch doctors' huts. I mean, go to the standing stones and find artifacts that will give you additional spell power and knowledge. For this reason, any amount of spell power and any amount of knowledge over the original one that your heroes will start off with is going to do more than double your spell casting prowess. More than double. How do you mean, FixFox? Here's what I mean. If you've got the level 2 spell, the blind, it will last for 1 turn with 1 spell power, and you can cast 1 blind per fight with the 6 spell points that it costs. If you get 2 knowledge, all of a sudden you can cast 3 blinds instead of 2. 6, 12, and then 18 spell points. And if you have the 2 spell power, all of a sudden you don't simply have to have your enemy be blinded for 1 single turn of combat. Now you have the additional flexibility. You can hold on to that blind for later in the fight, knowing that it will persist into the next round of combat. Your slow peasant or orc, they can be the one to apply the blind and then just let it stick around for the enemy. So whether you are on the adventure map with standing stones or witch doctors' huts or artifacts, look to prioritize a little bit of early spellcasting ability. Tip number 7, look for artifacts like the wizard's hat or the hourglass, because these are going to artificially increase your spell casting ability by increasing the duration of the spells that you do cast. Also, look for artifacts that are going to mitigate spell casting by your enemies. For example, the Seeing Eye Pendant will ward off a blind lock, or the Pendant of Dispassion will prevent a berserk from falling upon your troops. These can prevent the biggest headache that the Barbarians will have to deal with. Lightning Helm, Fire Cloak, Ice Cloak, yeah, all of those artifacts could be pretty useful for you. And lastly, something like the Ballista of Quickness might not get a lot of appreciation as far as artifacts go, but as the Barbarians, you have the opportunity to look at artifacts that others might discard or not see a lot of value in, and use them in a very unique and strategy-defining sort of a way. Ballista of Quickness, you need to get through those castle walls as soon as possible. One extra castle shot? That sounds pretty good to me. So, look for these artifacts that others might discard. Tip number 8. Barbarians are likely to spec into things like logistics, ballistics, and archery, which are all great because they're S-tier skills for the Barbarians, in part due to your faction. You don't have any flying troops, so the ballistics is really good. You have 2 shooters, and so the archery is excellent. And logistics pairs really well with the pathfinding that you're already going to start off with. One of the secondary skills that I really like to take for the Barbarians would be luck. It's interesting because you're already going to be doing a lot of bonus damage because of your high attack skill, and then you have the chance to double it with luck. Now that is a recipe for success. The Barbarians are also, by the way, likely to get secondary skills like Mysticism and Eagle Eye. Not that often. It's going to be an occasional sort of a deal, but even Mysticism and Eagle Eye might be more effective on the Barbarians than other factions, again, because they have a greater effect size. Being able to pick up 1 lightning bolt or a blind through the Eagle Eye, or being able to pick up an additional 1 or 2 spell points a day might be enough to keep your Barbarian army rolling. Tip number 9, you've got wolves. They are cheap, they are 6 speed, they are scouts. Use them as such. 1 wolf per hero is going to make them go very far and very fast. Tip number 10, did you know that the Barbarians are the only faction that have 3 creatures from their roster that have neutral dwellings on the adventure map? It's true. Goblins from the huts, orcs from the towers, and trolls from the bridges. If you can find any amount of these huts, towers, and bridges on the adventure map, if you can secure them early on, you're going to get some troops for the entire rest of the game, and you're going to get a huge, decided advantage in rolling these forces towards a victory. Tip number 11 for the Barbarians, you do have some special abilities that you can potentially play around with. For example, the Troll has the regeneration ability. If a Troll has 1 HP, by the beginning of the next round of combat, it will regain 39 HP to bring itself back up to full. Now, that is kind of difficult to use and kind of difficult to play around with. You can steal skin, you can shield, you can do whatever you possibly can to keep that top stack alive, and in small numbers, you can find some success, but it does take quite a bit of pampering to really get the very most out of that special ability. On the other hand, you have the Cyclopes, who have a double hex attack, which can absolutely go nutty for you. 12 to 24 damage from the Cyclopes, and then you double that damage by hitting 2 troops at once. Pretty fantastic. Not to mention, you get the added bonus of having a 20% chance to paralyze the victim of their Gazer Beam. Yes, if you're wondering, you can paralyze 2 units at once with that. Tip number 12, there's no such thing as too much attack skill. And let me explain. Yeah, there is a cap in the game. You will max out at 300% bonus damage if your attack skill gets way too high. For example, let's say that a 12 attack skill dragon attacks a 2 defense mutant zombie. The dragon is already going to do 100% bonus damage because it's got 10 more attack skill compared to the defense of the creature. But if you have a hero augmenting the capabilities of the dragon, and you have, say, 20 attack on this barbarian, yeah, you're going to hit this cap of 300% bonus damage, and the 21st or the 22nd bit of attack skill on that hero is not actually going to modify the damage even further. You've already hit that cap. So yeah, I guess that there is some level of too much attack skill there, but when it comes right down to it, you're not going to hit that mystical cap all that often, especially when it comes down to anytime you face an enemy hero. The final fight, as it were, yeah, you can get some pretty crazy numbers, that is for sure. So this might beg the question then, well, Fix Fox, if there's no such thing as too much attack skill, should I even diversify into defense skill? And I'll tell you, well, yeah, absolutely. I'm never going to tell you that any stats are bad stats. All stats are good and useful stats. But I will say that if you have the attack skill that's so very, very high, you have a very skill ceiling sort of a moment where you can use your speed and you can use your positioning on the battlefield and what other tips and tricks you might have, and you can try and fight the enemy by hitting them without getting retaliated against. You can use single stacks to eat retaliations. You can play with turn order using hastes and slows and whatever else. Yeah, you can do all these things in order to make sure that you are attacking and not getting hit back. But again, that is kind of a bit of a high skill ceiling sort of a deal. In general, it's always a good idea to have some amount of defense. But what I did not say is you should have less attack skill. Tip number 13, if you haven't ever tried this before, put all of your wolves onto one single hero. It's usually a good idea to try and split your forces on the adventure map as you're trying to clear out neutral creatures and pick up artifacts and claim mines. And the wolf is really, really good, but if you put all of the wolves into one stack, you might be able to do something where you break off single stacks to take retaliations and to get into the way of some of these other enemies you might have to deal with. And then you'll have one single big stack of wolves that will pounce on the enemy and hopefully do their double bite attack without any level of retaliation. It can be kind of tough to use the wolf because they're 6-speed creatures and all the rest of the barbarians are a little bit slower, and so they're going to charge down the battlefield and really cause themselves some harm by going right into the teeth of the enemy. But if you have an army comprised merely of wolves or only of wolves, then you can actually play with that a little bit more, and you'll kind of see that they're a better unit than sometimes they get credit for. Tip number 14, for your secondary hero, consider getting a magic user. It's not always necessary, and sometimes you'd prefer to wait until way later to get this magic using sort of hero, but it can be very effective in the early game for you. Some of my personal favorite things to do is to look for a warlock, because warlocks have scouting, they already come with the spell book, and they have the curse, and so if I've got a damaging spell anywhere nearby, they're going to use that very effectively. And then also, they'll come with gargoyles. Not always, but most of the time, warlocks come with gargoyles, and those gargoyles can be exceptionally effective at helping you take some fights that you otherwise had no business taking. Even if all the gargoyles do is buy you time against elves or druids or trolls, they're still definitely worth it. Shout out to the sorceresses for being my secondary pick, because they've got those flying creatures with the sprites. Again, even just a couple can go an awful long way. Tip number 15. Try and keep in mind what your enemies are. For the barbarians, you're going to have an opportunity in the early game to deny some leverage that your opponents might want to take on the map. Keep in mind, for example, do my enemies need sulfur? If they are the warlocks? If they are the wizards, do they need gems? Maybe I do my very best to make sure that they do not get access to the resources necessary to get their very best troops. Tip number 16 is very controversial, and that is this. Not always, as the barbarians, should you get the statue in week 1. I said what I said. The statue is a no-brainer. A little bit of ore, a little bit of gold, and for the rest of the game, you're gonna get 250 extra gold per day. It pays for itself so very quickly. But for the barbarians, it might delay some other critical buildings. That 5 ore might be adding to the bottleneck that you already have in getting your trolls or your cyclops. So really keep an eye out on your treasury and on the adventure map to see, is this statue going to be worth it in the first week of the game or not? Tip 17. Barbarians are some of the best users of neutral creatures out there. They're not as good as the knights with the knights' leadership ability to blend troops, but the barbarians do an exceptional job because there's a lot of different units out there that work really well with high attack skill heroes. In fact, one of the best parts about the barbarians, the best strength of the barbarians, is the cost efficiency of their troops and the quality of their heroes. Not every faction can say that their heroes are just that good, but for the barbarians, you can. And so if you see sprites out there or if you see halflings, you should probably consider whether or not you should take them. Now, maybe you find 1 or 2 ruins where you can find the Medusa. Maybe you can take those Medusa and then roll those into a dragon utopia, and then all of a sudden you've got some red dragons with this attack skill and you become unstoppable. Whatever the dwelling, if you can find some nice neutral dwellings out on the map, really take a good hard look at those and see if you can keep your juggernaut rolling. Tip number 18. It's your goal to win the game before it even starts. However, that's not always going to be feasible. And so what might be very useful for you is this: keep an eye out for other towns that you can take and then make your own. Sure, the barbarian heroes are exceptionally powerful, but their troops tend to fall off in the late game. The Cyclopes simply can't hold a candle to a Titan or a dragon, and so what you might want to do is find another faction that you can build up, and that might mean that you need to abandon your original castle. Not always will you upgrade that castle. If you need to do your best hermit crab impression and move in somewhere else, maybe you stop building before it's too late. Maybe you forego the bridge, maybe you forego the pyramid and get back to that building whenever you can. But never sacrifice your future just for a little bit of fun right now with a couple of trolls. That sounds worse than I meant to make it. Tip number 19. You will struggle against some factions more than others. I would worry about the wizards the least and the sorceresses the most, at least until we get the level 6 creatures on board like dragons and titans and so on and so forth. For this reason, the sorcs are tough because they've got reliable damage from range, and as spellcasters they're going to have nearly limitless spell points. So they're going to be able to reapply blinds, they're going to be able to mire down your troops, and they're going to have so much speed that you are going to struggle to deal with that as the barbarians unless you have adequate counters, or you can eventually jump on them and just tank all the damage that they're going to throw at you. Wizards, puny wizards, just don't worry about them. And finally, tip number 20, pick your targets very carefully with your trolls and your orcs. Now, turn order and attack versus defense skill matters when it comes to target selection, but you're generally going to get the best results if you have your trolls attack whatever high defensive value creature is out there and let the orcs clean up whatever lower defensive creatures are out there. There are some exceptions, of course. If, say, enemy rangers are about to go, they are 4-speed creatures, they're going to go before the orcs get to go. You might want to devote the shot from the trolls to the rangers to bring down those stacks and save you some damage. But other than that instance of turn order, you would always prefer to have the trolls do damage to, say, the crusaders and do some major damage to them, while the orc chieftains are the ones to clean up the lower defense skill creatures, because then they're just going to do more bonus damage, and bonus damage can never be a bad thing. The worst thing to happen is when the trolls attack the centaurs and the orc chieftains attack the black dragons. That's when you're really doing yourself a big disservice, because sure, the trolls are going to be doing lots of bonus damage against the low defensive creatures, but the orc chieftains, they're now doing negative damage most likely, and that's a problem. So once again, pick your targets very carefully, keeping in mind the turn order matters and also the attack versus the defense skill of these creatures. And so there you have it, 20 tips and tricks meant to help you be the best barbarian player that you can be. I don't know, but I reckon that even longtime fans of the series probably found at least 1 or 2 tips or ideas that they hadn't considered before, and maybe they're going to go out and give it a try and just see if it suits their style of play. Regardless of whether you're a longtime fan of the series or if you're brand new, I hope that you're enjoying Heroes of Might and Magic. If this information was a little bit above your head, or you didn't feel really like you were following it very well, then please go check out the beginner's guide video that we have here. I'll put it up on the screen somewhere here to the left or to the right, somewhere, and give that video a watch. Maybe that'll help you get caught up to speed. Otherwise, please do me a huge favor and look after you, look after your friends, look after your family, and take very good care of them and yourself, because if you don't, who will? I am FixFox. I'm happy to be here. I'm grateful to be a part of this great community, and I'm hoping that I get to see you playing Heroes of Might and Magic against me sometime in 2026, whenever the F-Heroes 2 team gets multiplayer up and ready. Until that time, I'm out. Peace.